So, welcome to my glasshouse. I've had this now for about 15 years, and as you can see from the floor, it's now all covered in gravel. But until 2 years ago, there was a path down the middle and beds at the back, where the back bench is, and down the sides. And for a few years, it had in it planted straight in the ground agapanthus, dahlias, semi-hardy tradescantia, a whole range of things really, and it had a lovely sort of full feel to it. But as time went on, I knew I wanted something that felt more like a glass house and less like a garden under glass, if that makes sense. I usually often grew tomatoes and sometimes grew cucumbers, which you can see I'm growing again this year. So then 2 years ago I decided to change and buy wooden benches to go in here. And you can see the first one I bought was the one at the back. And I bought that before I did anything with the ground. So that stood for a couple of years in the end on soil. And not a lot else happened in here really. Last year was quite a busy year for me at work. So by the start of this year, by the start of lockdown, the glass house was in quite a sorry state. The ground was very dry and dusty with soil and quite weedy. So I bought some gravel, a ton of this gravel, and put some membrane down underneath it and laid the gravel over top. Put the big bench at the back in and bought the one on the left hand side and just started stocking it with plants really, and it was sort of became my lockdown project, although I'd wanted to always do it. Hadn't done it for 2 years. Lockdown perhaps gave me a little bit more time to do it because I wasn't going out as much, wasn't in work as much. So I'll just take you through what I've done. I bought a load of pelargoniums from Fibrex. As you can see there, just a whole range of things really. Things I liked, and one specific things I liked, and then one scented plant collection, which was 6 or 7 plants I think that I didn't know what I would get, so that being one of them. And I potted those up into those pots that you can see. And I also bought a load of cacti because you can see the one that's in flower at the back there. I've had that a few years and neglected it really, and discovered that on my neglect it flowered, and the same actually with that one there. So and I was I was taken away by the beauty of the flowers of the cacti. So I decided to start a cacti collection to similarly abuse those and hope that they'll all flower next year. So the two that are in flower there, I've had those for a few years. That one that's in flower I only got this year, so I'm really pleased that that's flowering. And then the agave at the back there, where's my finger? There, that one. I've had that a few years and also thrived on neglect. As I say, last year was very busy. I didn't do an awful lot out here. And I love agaves, so I decided to buy 3 more. I think I got those from the Palm Centre, but there's 2 there and then one variegated one there. So I've created a sort of a cacti bench that's raised up there above the pelargoniums. You can see in the shade there a few money plant cuttings, and Hemanthus there that I got at a plant fair in Cambridgeshire a few years ago. It's flowered once but never since, so I'm hoping it'll flower, and I've got those under there because that's quite a shady spot. And then moving around here you can see the clivia that's coming flower. That was actually in my office at work when I changed jobs in September. It had been there years apparently, not flowered, so I brought it home at the start of lockdown and it's flowered. The bougainvillea was a bargain at a local supermarket, but is a glorious colour. I'm hoping will hide the water tank in time there. And then this, which I think is a prickly pear. Again, another one I've had for a few years. It got thoroughly abused last year because I didn't do anything with it, and all of the pads died except that one in the middle there. So I trimmed them up. You can see a scar left on there from when it was trimmed, and I thought, well, I'll water it and just see what happens. And lo and behold, most of the growth that you see, all the big paddles there, all of those, plus the buds on the top, have all grown in the last 2 or 3 months. Incredible. So moving round, I've always had a fascination, a long time had a fascination for insectivorous plants, and I bought about a dozen here from Hampshire Carnivorous Plants. Matt Soper, I think the chap's name is, and I'm really pleased with these. They've all of them except one. This one here does not seem to be very happy. All the others are really thriving, especially this end here. You can see the number of new, don't know if they're trumpets, leaves growing up, and many of those that you can see there are new and have grown this year. And they basically stand in trays of rainwater that I just top up every week or so. You can see a couple of crashula in the background there. Older leaves there. When I got this, it was funny, all the leaves on it had this sort of pock marking on it, and I didn't know what it was, but all the fresh ones, all the non-pock marked leaves you see all here, all fresh growth this year. This one, that one was given by a friend. This one here on the left I bought, and was a real pain because it was far too long and leggy and leant over. So I eventually gave up the ghost with staking it, cut the top off. If you can see that, I can't see myself actually as a contrast. Cut the top off there, and anyway, and I planted the top up somewhere, potted it up, and yeah, it's growing well. And then you can see under the bench the begonias. Most of them are pretty much all the ones on the front row are from Dibley's, and the ones in the back row are from either Barracotts or Krug Farm. And some of those are utter beauties. Look at that. Many of those have come from nothing. When I got them, I was really disappointed, I'll be honest, when I got them, because they were just soil in pots, nothing else. And you know, it's like you want instant gratification. But actually, they've come up really well. The only one that I'm a bit worried about is that one there, Candy Floss. Just seems very slow. But they seem to love it under there. When I first had in the Glasshouse in here, I didn't have this bench on the left-hand side, and I actually had an old kitchen table of my grandparents that's in the summer house at the moment. But I had that in here with them on, and they just got scorched in the sun. They hated it. But being under there, they get a lot of dappled shade. It's very warm in here. Well, not very warm, but it's warm in here, and they seem to thrive. This was a birthday present from a colleague at work, an aloe. Absolutely love it, but I can't believe how heavy it is. I think I nearly lost it earlier because I had it again in the Glasshouse with no shade, and the leaves started to go brown. So I put it behind this wall. This is the north end of the Glasshouse. So I put it on the outside at the other end of that, and within a week or so it had perked up and gone back to being green. Never intended to grow cucumbers this year. These were a gift again from somebody at work who had some spares, and I can't believe how much they've grown. I sort of by accident, I left them, not by accident, but I left them in these green trays here, which have no drainage. I don't know if you can see the roots are growing out of the bottom of the pot. I know there's a bit of algae there which is bothering me, but they seem to love it, and they just stand. They're in big 12-inch pots. They just stand in that water all week. The water slowly goes down over time, but they seem to be thriving on it. There's no mildew. I've got at every junction I've got a cucumber. just to give you a sense of, you know, how big, that's my hand, I've got quite big hands on the bottom leaf. They're doing really, really well. Tomatoes, not so sure about. I've got a trough at the bottom there, and the trough came with those black pots there. I've added those sort of green collars, and I think that was a mistake, really, I'm being honest. I think it's taken too long for the roots to get down into the trough with the water and the food in. I won't be doing that next year. And I also, like I don't know if you can see with the cucumbers, I've put string, so tied string up here, all the way down, planted the plant over it. The cucumbers seem to have been alright, but in the tomatoes, all the strings went rotten and snapped, and they weren't acting as support, so I then later had to put those canes in. So I think I'm going to have to limit the height of those tomatoes. Anyway, at the foot of the tomatoes there are 3 peppers and 1 chilli. I quite like peppers, I hate chilies to eat, but I love the plant. I thought it might be fun to grow. And down the end here I've got a lemon tree, a yellow and pink plant, and the name escapes me at the moment. How annoying. I've got another one at the other end, an orange one here, which I also love, but the name escapes me for the moment. And then here I've got a tree aloe. This is another one. If you look, when it arrived I was a bit disappointed with it, because if you ignore the top growth here, when they arrived they had just a few leaves on like this, but since I've had them the last, I suppose, sort of 3 months, they've pretty much, all 3 stems have grown probably about that much, and they're starting to look a lot better, and you may see that bit's just fallen off there. So I'm hoping in time that I can trim off the dead leaves when I think they've grown enough at the top to support themselves, and they'll look a lot better. But that's the glasshouse. Well, okay, there's also, I'll back up now, 2 self-watering hanging baskets with pelargoniums in, trailing pelargoniums. I love trailing pelargoniums, but these baskets are a bloody nuisance, so I keep hitting my head. I'm about 6'1" tall, so this is at the eye of my, this is the level of my eye, and every time wherever I put them, every time I bend over I seem to smack my head on them. So those 2 are mine. I've had those for years, and then the green one at the end, which you can see is a bit less well planted, was actually in my parents' shed. My mum didn't want it anymore, so I've got it on long-term loan. So yeah. Anyway, I can't. I'm on using my iPhone to record this, so I can't insert pictures of what. Well, I don't know how to insert pictures of what it was like beforehand, but it's a big difference, and I'm absolutely loving coming out here after work and pottering and keep tinkering with stuff. I've got trays under the benches here. I don't know if you can see the mess there, either a bird or a squirrel, or possibly even a cat, I suppose, maybe using it as a litter tray, but I don't know, got in, kicked around my succulent plants here and kicked out all that blooming vermiculite there, so I need to tidy that up. But over here I've got plants, taking cuttings of the money tree. I think that's an aloe, but that's struggling somewhat. It was one in a pot and had loads of pups, so I tried to take cuttings, but I haven't done that very well, I don't think. But anyway, that's the glasshouse. Over time I'm going to fill these trays here. In the water tank at the back there, I ordered some black tubing. That's just like a loft tank. It was about £7 online. It takes 10 gallons. I'm going to use that to drip water the 4 trays along the back and the trays down here, and get rid of these. I started using these have got water in, and they work okay, but they just look a bit unsightly, and I had to use black plastic to cover them, stop them going mouldy, and get covered in algae. So those 3, there's one in the corner there, will be going, and I'll be using that when I get the adapter and the tubing, etc., to put water into the 1, 2, 3, 4 trays on the back, and probably 3 trays along here. Anyway, that's me and my glass house today.